I'd like to call this meeting of the Deer Management Program Board to order at 6 o'clock on July 15th, 2024. I will now ask the members to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Now we'll move on to roll call. The supervisor or his designee.
Here.
The chairperson of the Conservation Board, that is me, here. And the town resident appointee.
Here.
Okay. And can we take note of who else is in attendance here, starting up here and moving on down?
Tracy Hyatt, attorney for the town.
Michelle Nichols, recording secretary.
Scott Peters, chief of police.
Lieutenant Joe Kuhn.
And do you guys mind popping up to the microphone and just say who your name and, do they need the address, Michelle?
Yes, please.
Name and address?
Yes, Karina Lake at 141 Sagamore Drive.
Thanks. Yep.
Tom Lake, 141 Sagamore Drive.
Thank you.
Gregory Devlin, Oak Ridge Drive.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to the minutes. So in our packet, we had minutes from the last time this board met on September 22nd, 2022. Were you all able to review the minutes? Okay. Were there any questions, comments, changes, anything like that?
No.
All right. I had none either. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those say against say nay. Hearing none, the minutes are approved. All right. We now have a session for public input. This is not necessarily you guys' section, but if we have anybody else who wants to speak about just anything in general to bring forward to the board, you're more than welcome to at this time. Oh, it's not you guys yet. You have an appeal. You're coming up next. This is just general. Do you have anything to share of just general info?
Yes, I do. And as I just said, Greg Devlin, and I am very much in favor of the deer management program and culling of the deer. From my perspective, the deer are a danger to the community. The more deer we have, the more they interfere with cars and traffic, and that results in accidents, people getting hurt, and that's not good. The deer, without having any predators, without having anything pushing against them, become very bold. Deer standing out in the front yard, and I can walk up to within 10 feet of them. Just stand there and look at me. No fear. And they should have a lot of fear. No fear. But also, I wonder about disease and bacteria and stuff like that. My kids used to be able to play out in the yard. My grandkids can't. Those deer, they're eating all over it, all the shrubbery and stuff like that, but in the process of doing that, they are, excuse the French, pooping all over the yard. We can't allow the grandchildren to, in fact, go out there and play in the yard, because I don't know where when the latest batch of poop has been dropped, and I don't know where it's going to be, if they're going to get into it. We don't want that to happen. Also, the deer are a danger to themselves. If you think about it, the park, I don't believe, can sustain a growing population. When the population grows unabated, and deer having sometimes 2 litters per year per doe, that increases exponentially. Without stopping that growth, they become diseased because they don't have anything to eat. It's not good. It's bad for all of us. They don't have any natural predators. There's no danger to them. None whatsoever. They have no fear. There are no wolves or cats like they would find normally in the wild to go after them. We have some coyotes, but the coyotes may go after the little ones, but not after the big ones. They can't get them. That population is growing, but unless we see more and more of their natural predators come here, which I really don't want to see, we need to go ahead and do something else instead. We must, in fact, stick with having a culling program, a program that really does a good job to really reduce the population for their own sake. And I want to be on the program for the property. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So before turning to the agenda, I would like to set some ground rules for this meeting. Everyone should know that because this is a public meeting, questions must be addressed to the board. Participants are not allowed to question each other directly. If you feel that you must interject, please raise your hand. This meeting will happen in phases. First, I will ask the attorney for the town to provide a brief explanation of the appeal. Second, Ms. Lake or her counsel will present her appeal, followed by the IPD with a response, followed by a reply from Ms. Lake or her counsel, ending with questions from the board. Third, I will ask the board members to publicly deliberate and make any motions they may have, such as a motion to grant an appeal, deny an appeal, or table an appeal for further consideration. Fourth, I will address any remaining matters, such as establishing the next meeting date or entertain a motion to close. With that background, Ms. Hyatt, would you please provide an explanation of the appeal?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Greer. As the board knows from its packets, on November 8th, 2023, Ms. Lake sent a request to the Arundecoit Police Department seeking to exclude the property located behind 141 Sagamore Drive, which is the Legionnaire Drive area from the bow hunt program. IPD denied the request by letter dated November 20th, 2023. Ms. Lake appealed the denial on November 30th, 2023. The appeal arises under Town Code Section 93-4D. That section appears at the end of the meeting packets. It gives neighbors of a property that have been approved for the bow hunt program the right to request a removal of the property. I will now read that section in full. If for reasons unique to the neighborhood or property and creating a safety concern for people in that particular neighborhood, a neighbor within 500 feet of the qualified property's boundary line in any direction may request that such property not be included in the program. Such request shall be made in writing to the IPT officer and explain why such property should not be included in the program. The IPT officer will have final authority to determine if a property can qualify for the program. The IPT officer shall inform the neighbor who made the request of their decision within 15 days of receiving the request. Any party aggrieved by the IPD officer's determination whether to include a property can be appealed to the DMPB within 30 days of the IPD officer's decision, pursuant to 93-2N. Nothing herein shall be construed to limit when a neighbor within 500 feet of a qualified property may request the IPD officers that such property not be included in the program. Notwithstanding the foregoing, subsequent requests to the IPD officers regarding the same qualified property shall not be considered unless the requester provides new or previously unknown information about the qualified property. Your role as the board is to review the IPD's determination. If you disagree with the determination, you may reverse and grant the removal of the property from the program. If you agree with the determination, you may affirm, and the IPD's determination will stand. You could make your decision tonight or wait until a future meeting to make your decision. I advise you that your deliberations must be public. So regardless of when you make your decision, board members should not discuss the appeals amongst themselves unless it's at a meeting like the one we're in now. In other words, the board members should not discuss these appeals with each other behind closed doors, on the telephone, by text message, or by any other means. And at this point, I turn it back to you, Ms. Greer.
Thanks. We'll now call up matter 2024-01, the appeal of Karina Lake. Ms. Lake, would you please come forward to make your presentation?
Thank you for having me. I have some extra copies of documents I'd like to pass out, if that is allowed.
Yes, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
I only made 6, so you might have to share their. I just included my letter in this packet, the response, my appeal. And I just wanted to reiterate that in the code 93-3A, hunting will not be allowed on days on which any school located in the town is not in session. I homeschool my children, and I just wanted to share proof of that we are home and our home is our school. On page 7 is my letter from the district of my most recent quarterly and annual assessment report of 2 out of my 3 of my kids. So this is for my 9 and 12-year-old. My son is entering 1st grade in the fall, so he'll be, his report is coming this fall. So I have 3 kids, ages 6, 9, and 12, and our home is our school, so our backyard is part of our school. We school indoors and outdoors, and also it's our property and my children are home, and I just would like them to be able to go outside. And I feel like this code was written to account for residents who might be fearing their safety. And on page 4, I showed a picture of the property marker at the end of our property. That's the pink ribbon there. And the tree stand was moved. So this is a picture of the tree stand where it is currently. Where it was before was approximately less than 150 feet away from the end of our property, which is in 93-3 Part P, as in Peter. All hunting shall be conducted at least 150 feet away from any dwelling, building, structure, or designated bus stop. And it might be that now, but I just don't know if everyone knows how close that is. Like, we were able to see the hunter. I mean, we could wave to him. We could see him from the kitchen window, from my bedroom window, and I do appreciate that the tree stand was moved. But it doesn't change the fact that search and retrieval could happen on our property. And my kids are home again, and this doesn't happen when school is out of session in the town. And at the end of the packet, my next door neighbors have added their request to exclude the property as well. One house to my right is a retired person who wrote her concerns down from 153 Sagamore. And then the other person on the other side, their children are also young and home in the mornings. They're preschool age, even though they're not homeschooling. They're at 129 Sagamore, and their request for the exclusion of the area is there as well. And I'm not against the program. I grew up in this town. I grew up on Oakview, actually, and I remember it used to be in that area. And I understand the need for the program. I'm just asking for this area to be removed because the homes from the flats in the back of Sagamore, where I am, just seems very narrow. And the reason we bought this house last summer was to utilize the environment behind our home property. And also, I know that there hasn't been an incident in 27 years, but I will say there hasn't been young children in our particular house at 141 in 27 years, and there's a lot more young kids on the street now than there was 27 years ago, and I don't want to be the first family to have an incident with a search and retrieval or anything regarding the hunters. And lastly, I want to say when I met the hunter by accident the day I found him, he was startled. I was startled. We talked, and I don't think he was, I mean, he's not here to testify himself. His reaction to seeing me and my kids were, a hop, skip, and a jump away. My kids didn't see him, but I just don't know if being around children is part of their training. So I guess that's also one of my questions today, because my kids are home and it's part of our home education. Our learning can happen outside in the morning. So are these hunters comfortable being around small children that are hop, skip, and a jump away from where they're trying to work as well? I can't think of anything else to say at this time. Do I ask if there's any questions?
Not yet.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
Yep, you're good. IPD, would you like to respond?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. I'll try and get as many points as I can, and if I need to have some clarification, I'll have Lieutenant Kuhn jump in. He is obviously the head of the bow hunt program, actually administers it on a day-to-day basis. But I would just like to add, first of all, I think November 5th was the first day that Mrs. Lake contacted Lieutenant Kuhn. Lieutenant Kuhn, just going through my timeline, got back from being a couple days off on November 8th. We received her letter. And I think between then and November 11th, Lieutenant Kuhn actually made attempts to actually get back to Mrs. Lake to let her know what kind of steps we were taking to try and assuage her fears. He actually also spoke to the hunter that was a part of the program. Hunter was very amenable. He said, I don't want to cause any problems whatsoever. I'll move my tree stand, and quite frankly, we thought everything was going to go well. I received the letter from Mrs. Lake, and within the 15 days, November 20th, after doing my research and speaking with Lieutenant Kuhn, we denied her request to remove the property from the bow hunt program. A couple reasons why. Doing a 3-year look back on the program, 32% of the deer in our bow hunt program have been taken in that property area in the Legionnaire District. 32%, that's almost a third. So that's a huge number. We've had this bow hunt program going since 1996, and we've had 0 injuries or any type of incidents with hunters. Actually, the town of Irwin, which is located down in Corning, actually started their own program in conjunction with the DEC, and they actually followed our example, basically because of our safety and from the results that we've had. What else? Judging from what the gentleman said first, disease, Lyme disease. Lyme disease is a huge issue. Everybody knows that there's ticks everywhere, all throughout this town, and especially in the wooded areas, right, all throughout the town. The herd that we have, as we said, as they start to grow and food sources are more scarce, the ticks will look upon as the deer as easy prey for them. The amount of, and if anybody owns a dog or any pet and all that stuff in the town, you also know that your animals have to be quite protected because there's ticks everywhere inside there. Chronic wasting disease. We are actually in the process of working with the DEC to expand, doing a test case to actually check the deer that are taken in Monroe County. That's going to entail that we actually, as a deer is culled, they will actually have to come and harvest the head, because that disease gets into the central nervous system, and it's a fatal disease. It's not anything that can be treated. And as we know, the reason why our deer herd is so large in the town is we're surrounded on water by 3 sides. The deer have no place to go. The other border they have is the city of Rochester with a natural border of the 104 Expressway. The deer have no place to go other than to completely crossbreed, and all of those bad biological traits that are passed on from generation to generation are just completely multiplied in this town. So that's the reason why we've had this program. We used to work in conjunction with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, working through Durand Eastman Park and actually having the sharpshooter program. But obviously, baiting deer and shooting them with sniper rifles was not, let's just say it wasn't as agreeable to the neighborhood, hearing gunshots in the middle of the night. Being a bow hunter myself, the longest shot that you would take with a bow would be 15 to 20 yards. That's the average shot is maybe between 8 to 12 yards. And with shooting a bow, you have to see what your target is, and the target area is about the size of a fist. So you have to identify what you're shooting at first and actually have to get a good shot placement to be able to humanely cull that deer. Deer and humans do not look anything alike. It's unlike rifle season, shotgun season. Bow hunting is completely different than gun hunting itself. So I think I've got all the points. Taking this property out of the deer hunting program, like I said, would probably reduce our culling of the herd by more than a third. So I don't think it's a good place, and I understand her concerns. But like I said, throughout this whole almost 30 years of this program, we've had 0 incidents whatsoever of any danger to any residents. Now, I'll give it over to the lieutenant to see if he has anything else to add.
Thanks, Chief. I think Chief covered all the points that we wanted to make tonight. I don't really have anything else to add. I can answer any questions when that time comes.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Lake, the next step is if you would like to have a rebuttal. If you want to come up and respond to anything that they said, and then stay there for questions, because that's when we'll open questions.
No, I just would like to add that in addition to deer, coyotes and foxes, raccoons, mice also carry ticks, and there is a vaccine being developed for Lyme disease. Obviously, it's not out yet, and I'm concerned about ticks as well, but I guess I just wonder, I just feel like what's not being addressed is this doesn't happen when school children are out of school and home, and also it's not happening that closely to a schoolyard where children are playing outside, and that's our home is our school. So and I understand if we can't remove the entire Legionnaire area, are we open to redrawing the boundaries? That's all I'll say.
Okay, hang out there, because then
okay.
we'll go to questions. All right, give me a second. Okay, Okay, so thank you. And then this will conclude our presentations from the participants, and the members of the board, we are now open for questions. And let me see if that's, yes, that's the list of that page. So questions and discussion, anything we want to talk about.
We can ask questions, right?
Yep,
Of,
anyone.
okay. So I guess this question is for anyone who might be able to answer it. Trying to look at both sides of it. Is there any data on, I'm trying to think of how to word this. I guess the benefits to the community in terms of, is there any data on like Lyme disease reduction in animals or humans, or any data on a reduction in, let's say, car accidents due to hitting deer? Is there any data on any of those sorts of things?
Yes, so in the past, years ago, when this department was developing this program, we had kept track of, there was a lot of car, deer, motor vehicle accidents. There was one year, I believe, was around 267. It's the number that stands out to me. Yeah, we have them every day, honestly. But we have reduced it from that 267, which was the number that was passed on to me when I got involved. After the inception of the program, the next time they measured that statistic, they dropped it down into double digits of like 60. As far as Lyme disease, I'm not sure. I mean, if there's a deer with ticks on it who have Lyme disease and it continues to live, obviously there'd be a reduction if that deer was to die. But I don't have any Lyme disease numbers to give you. That's about all.
Am I allowed to ask questions?
You can't ask questions.
I cannot.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I do have a question for you, though.
Okay.
Can you describe your property? Because I was looking at the mapping, and it
Yeah.
looks like it's a long linear property, and the house is kind of up on top of the hill.
Right.
And then from the contouring, it looks like there's probably like a 50, 60-foot drop, because you're in a steep slope district, down to the Legionnaire area. Is that correct?
I don't know if the drop is that. It's a gradual drop, like it's a hill. So, yeah, we have steps going down all the way to the end. So it's 2 lots, trees. It's like grass cut to the end, where there's a fire pit, and then there's the town woods is behind. There's a little bit of trees, and then the town woods that is like there's a deer trail at the end of our property.
Okay.
And that's where we were exploring the deer trail, and that's where we found the hunter.
Okay, so you can access all the way down
Oh, yeah.
to the back.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And so can my other 2 neighbors.
Okay. And then from my other reviewing of the mapping, so it looks like the Legionnaire area is actually, I don't know, like a dozen different properties that are kind of cobbled together that are owned by the town. So it's not really just like one huge area. It's a bunch of different pieces with, this looks like the area where they were going to do a subdivision and they put in roadways and then they didn't.
It's like the beginning part, where I am is the beginning part of Sagamore, but Sagamore is pretty long.
So the Legionnaire site itself has 2 parcels. There's a long, slender parcel on the west side of Legionnaire Drive, and then there is the larger portion that is much wider, which is found on the northern end of it. The other blue borders that you see on the Legionnaire Drive hunting location picture, on the bottom portion of the picture, that's a totally separate, that's a Seneca Park Ave
Okay.
parcel that the town owns.
Okay, so the long, slender one that's basically adjacent to the back of their properties, is that where the deer stand is, or are they further back?
No. So where Sagamore Drive is written in orange on that map, that's the portion that borders Miss Lake's property. The portion, the long slender portion on the west side of Legionnaire
I see,
Drive
I
is
see.
what borders the back of St. Joseph properties, St. Joseph Street
Okay,
properties.
but yeah, so the big fat chunk, though,
Correct.
that one has, inside it is a bunch of different parcels.
Can you
Oh,
hold-
I don't have that
Can
map
you
that
hold
maybe
it
you're
up?
looking at.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure what you're looking at.
This is really dark, but
I have thousands.
this is the map that's in the packet.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Oh, yes, okay. Thank you, thank you.
So if they are a bunch of different parcels, is it feasible to split it up to kind of avoid Miss Lake's house?
I don't see that it is different parcels. It's all town-owned property to my understanding. And so I noticed in her letter, I mean, I think there's some sort of a middle ground I think we can come to here, but, I noticed that you noted that 93.3H states it shall be the hunter's responsibility to obtain permission of any property owner upon an injured or dead deer being located on your property for reasonable search and retrieval. So at no point would you be subject to a search and retrieval without us first gaining your permission. We're not just going to walk on your property. That's not acceptable. We're not going to do that.
But
So,
with
I
the
mean, I don't
hunter-
even. You can just tell me you don't want us there, and I won't even ask. Now, as far as the deer, I have no control over where they run after
Right.
they're. You know what I mean? So, I can't promise you a deer won't run on your property, but I can promise you we won't go on it unless first we get your permission and notification. So,
And the deer,
I noticed you also asked to, deer hunter will not, that's trespassing. And that's the reason why we have the police department as far as, we take care of the program so that we make sure that, all the laws of the state are followed. And hunters really, traditionally hunters have been very respectful of property lines, and because especially not in town, but I mean, especially down like Southern Tier, people take their property lines very seriously. So it's one of these things where we make sure that we don't want to violate your individual rights.
Right.
And so you guys said the tree stand was originally roughly like 150 feet from their property line, and now
I
it's
think
been
less. I think
moved. Okay,
less.
and then it was moved to ballpark away?
It
I
was
think
moved.
it's around 170 now, but go ahead.
I can check. I just know it was more than the approved portion, so I didn't measure. But yeah, he moved it right away. I didn't. He didn't have to. I didn't tell him he had to. He voluntarily said, "No, I don't want to cause any issues for anybody." So that's, and obviously I can meet with him again this year, and I don't even think I'd have to. He's a very reasonable guy. He's not going to put it back to where he knows he's not welcome. Pretty
And
much.
he was one of at least 5, right? Because he said there's more out here. When I met him, he was startled and didn't expect me and my kids to be home.
So that's his tree stand, and
Okay.
unless he gives someone else in the program permission to hunt in it, typically no one else would.
I met like 5 other tree stands.
There are other tree stands in there that because that site itself, we cycle the hunters in this program that don't have permission from private landowners to hunt. So each week there's a new group that would go in, and a lot of people that participate in the program, their tree stands are there and they're left there for the season. It doesn't necessarily mean someone's in that stand every single day. It's just they don't want to haul it in and out. It's very heavy. It's cumbersome. So they leave it there for the duration of the season, and then
Are they familiar? Oh, can I ask a question?
I'm open for
Yeah, sure.
answers.
I
or
just
whatever.
I was wondering if the hunters are familiar with the properties and the property lines too, because when I met him, he was like, "Oh, the guy on Legionnaire didn't like me coming through back here." And
Yeah, that's Carm, who's actually through the years we've become to know each other very well, and now he's totally fine with it. But I understand how people get nervous, absolutely. But for the lottery members is what we call them, because they get cycled through different town properties.
Okay.
We perform a walkthrough with them prior to the commencement of the season opening, and we show them the boundaries. We explain to them the ins, the outs, the rules. We're in constant communication with them every day. There's a police officer in charge of running the day-to-day operations of the program. We have a cell phone, which all the hunters have the number to. They have to text us when they're hunting, when they're leaving, if they shot anything, do they need assistance with a track.
and,
So
and
we're on
why
it.
doesn't it happen in the summer?
I'll answer both your questions right
Okay.
there. So, for your first one, you're talking about are the hunters, do they understand where the property lines are? Most hunters, I would think almost all hunters, unless you have your own private property, have these apps on their phone. This one right here is called the HuntWise app. Shows all the property lines. So where I want to actually go and hunt, or if I was actually looking to find out if it's public property, private property, I can click right on here. It shows you who the actual property owner is, and it gives contact information, either address, phone number, anything else. And any responsible hunter, which all of the hunters in our program are, will contact the property owner first to say, hey, would I have permission to walk through your yard, or would I be able to use your easement to access this area, anything else?
What's the app called?
This one is called HuntWise app, but there's
HuntWise.
other ones. There's other ones out there. This is tied right into the New York DEC, so you can actually do all of your reporting right through the app. DEC gets all the information of where the deer was taken, was it male, female, what your ticket number was, or your license number, everything else. The second question you had was
Summer.
the summer. We follow the DEC hunting guidelines, and so only the hunting, well, during the hunting season, that's the only time that the hunters are out there. So that's the only time you'll see them out there.
Okay, thank you. Let me think. Anybody else have any other questions?
I have a question. Have you seen any hunter aiming, because they're supposed to aim towards the interior, have you seen a hunter aim instead towards your property?
No, I can see him standing or sitting just when I saw the deer stand, but I don't really want to be watching them.
Okay.
But fair question, yeah.
Because, yeah, that is correct. There's a regulation in which they're supposed to be only shooting towards the interior side of a property, so they wouldn't be shooting out towards the property line.
Like facing me?
Facing-
Facing
'cause
against you, like their back would be to your property and they'd be shooting towards the interior of the hunted property. Does that make sense?
I think so. I could see his whole front, if that
Well,
makes
he may
sense,
get
from
turned
my
around.
backyard.
I don't know.
I don't know.
So-
So I guess he's facing me.
Yeah.
I
So
guess.
remember when I think we addressed it, when I went out and met with you, we walked back there.
Yeah.
So the stand itself was facing her,
Okay.
your property.
Right.
So there's it's a very wooded area. There's trees everywhere. So the shooting lanes, what we call them in bow hunting, were only to the left and right of him. He could only shoot left or right. Everything in front of him was blocked with, large trees and brush, and there's no, you can't shoot in front of him. I think I remember I pointed that out to you, and
Yeah.
because honestly, unless you partake in bow hunting, it's kind of hard to understand, and so just to answer your question.
Yeah.
No, it's good because
I-
I think most of us don't hunt, so any
Well,
information on how it goes
yeah,
is
like I said
helpful.
before, like most shots are only taken between like 8 to 12 yards. That's the length of this floor, this room. And now from an elevated platform, if your tree stands 12 to 15 feet up in the air, I mean that's 5 yards of the shot going. If you're shooting straight down, just like Lieutenant Kuhn said, is you try and not shoot anywhere there's any branches or brush or anything else, because that will knock your arrow offline, and that's inhumane, especially if you're shooting a deer not in a vital area. So if I'm looking at you, but my shooting lanes are over here, it may be, my shooting lane may be in the interior, but from here I'm trying to watch both ways to make sure to see which way I can have the most advantageous shot.
Okay.
So, but I wouldn't be able to shoot anywhere in between this cone right here, but I might be able to shoot over here, I might be able to shoot over here. So,
Okay.
I still think my kids could see that, though, from where we live and where they are, if that makes sense,
Okay.
if we're outside learning that day.
So for your classroom, they're always supervised, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Because I was looking at the section about the school closing, and it doesn't really say
Why?
why. It just says when students are not in session. So thinking about that, like there are, like at any point in time, there are homeschooled kids, there are kids homesick, there are kids who are not school aged at home, higher propensity of it being unsupervised when it's like a vacation day or a conference day when your parents might be at work and then those kids are home. But generally a kid homesick or a kid who's homeschooled or a kid who's underage is probably going to be supervised. So I would assume that's probably why it's not like blanket any kid anywhere home at any point in time type thing. But
Right, but it's an assumption, too.
it's an assumption. It does not specifically say how
Right,
that.
if it's due to safety, or what schools or teachers would say, or other parents. Yeah,
excuse me.
yeah.
I would say probably law of averages. At that point, you probably have, instead of having 3,000 to 5,000 kids in schools, all the different schools, on the days that there's no school and we don't have the hunting program, that's 3,000 to 5,000 more chances that kids might be
that
outside
are home
playing.
and outside or roaming, doing whatever they want to do, hiking someplace.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think as it's so close to our home that I wanted to feel safe that my kids could roam. I mean, that's our home. So,
Did you have something you wanted to add?
Now are we also discussing it between
Yes.
ourselves, or is that
Yes.
separate? Okay. So I just have some thoughts I'm trying to like piece together in my brain, but I'm thinking about the homeschooling factor. And to me, I look at it as, while I appreciate wanting to have, I'm trying to think back to the email, like basically equal treatment, it's also electing to be different by choosing to homeschool them. So it's never going to be the same. So I'm trying to think of, so I guess for me, that means there needs to be, some understanding that maybe the lesson doesn't need to take place during hunting time, or maybe it doesn't need to take place.
Right, like
At
there
the
are
back of the
specified
yard.
hours that hunting can take place and must be done by noon, so maybe
Right.
the
Given-
afternoon is when you do outside stuff.
Right, given like the idea that this is happening sort of for the greater good to prevent all of these things that we do have some statistics on for the car accidents.
And I always lean back to, like, it is a permissible activity, you know, like, it's the same reason we have, like, noise ordinances, things like that. Like, someone else can do something on that property. You may not necessarily like it, but it is permissible. So as long as everybody is respecting each other and the safety factors on either side, then there's probably a means of working together to get something
And
both accomplished.
the not liking it sort of reminded me of another thought I was having, which is some of what's being said sounds like it's like not liking to see the hunter, not liking to see the deer, but those aren't the same as being in imminent danger or even a threat of danger.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to see a dead deer. I don't particularly want to see a hunter behind my backyard, but at the same time, I see the value in that. So, you know,
I would like to add, I think it goes beyond liking or a choice. I think, I do think child development, trauma, and anxiety are factors as well. I do have a kid that has a generalized anxiety disorder, and I do think that would increase definitely if she were to see or interact or experience any of that in our yard. And I do think anyone that buys their home doesn't want to be told when and when they can't use their property.
Well, it's not that you can't use it, it's just that during that period of time, there will be something going on at the other part of the at the adjacent property.
And,
I don't know.
and also that, you know, it's been going on for the 27 years and you just moved in, so, you know, it's something new to you, but it's a constant. And I think that a good point is about the ticks. I know I have a dog and I always take her for a walk every single day, and I live over by Eaton Road and by the St. Paul Exempt, and I've been over there, and every time I go over there I have to tick check her because I've found multiple ticks on her. And she's not even going close to the woods, just on the outside of it. So, you know, just any way to kind of reduce that would be a great help, I think.
Yeah, so I kind of lean towards, like, from a safety perspective, which is the main issue, with the moving of the tree stand, the direction of the shooting being in another direction, your kids being supervised, it seems to me like the direction or the distance that a bow can actually travel, like the safety, just, it seems to me like it's not an issue. That's an easy way to be avoided, because everybody's moved away from their edge, and that shouldn't be really a problem.
I'm trying. I'm not seeing a safety issue. Trying to see like both sides of it, and all I can see is that I feel like if this area were to be removed, it would just be much more harmful generally. I don't want to see more car accidents. I don't want to see my daughter seeing more car accidents. I don't think the preference for not wanting to see a hunter and see a deer, which again is not the same as danger, should not outweigh something that's so good for the community. I'm not seeing
Yeah, and
danger.
I'm not against the whole program. I grew up here. I understand. I grew up at the end of Oakview. So I'm just asking that redrawing boundaries or just this part of Legionnaire, because I also don't want my kids to see a search and retrieval of a deer, wounded deer. And I don't think the first stand was 150 feet away from our property line. And I don't want to feel like I have to check all of that.
I was just going to say, so obviously in regards to the 150 feet, that should definitely be, that's an issue if it was closer. But in terms of safety, not just anybody can bow hunt, correct? They have to. go through something?
Right, so our members, the only people that are allowed to participate in the program are members that have successfully passed a qualifier that we run them through. The qualifier is made up in a way that it's supposed to be realistic shots that they take. They prove their proficiency. They have to do that 2 years in a row in order to be vested in the program. So yeah, it's not open to the public, although we have a large waiting list to try to get in. It's very popular, but not everyone can hunt in this program. No.
Yeah, so that's almost making me think that maybe really the issue, at least initially, was more with this particular hunter following the regulations and not so much there being an out-and-out safety issue. Especially though the stand may have been too close to the property, there's no evidence that anyone was shooting, to the exterior of the property that they're supposed to be hunting on.
Yes, and just to go back, that is actually looking at 93.3 subdivision section P. All hunting shall be conducted at least 150 feet away from any dwelling, building, structure, or designated bus stop. It doesn't say anything about property line.
Right, yeah, because we've come up with that one before, like that's a particular house or structure or whatever. The property line, I want to say, was only like 50 feet maybe.
It is.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you for clarifying. I think it'd be nice if the code did state why it's not allowed on days in which school is not in session.
Did you have something?
That's all.
I mean, just for Miss Lake's sake, if you do a walkthrough, I mean, could you just point out this house and say, try to avoid this area? I mean, obviously that's kind of I know you said you filter through multiple different participants, so that might be an issue, but just kind of trying to ask that question.
You have my word, I will specifically state. I mean, I can't tell them not to hunt as long as they're following the rules. I can't really tell them don't do that. It's not in the rules, but we know they're sensitive areas. I can let them know that that's one of them, and to stay further back than they normally would, and they're going to comply with that. They have no issues. They're very reasonable people. If they weren't, I wouldn't put up with it, to be honest with you. So.
And then my thoughts, the track record of there being, 26 years with 0 incidents? I'm just considering that it would lead me to believe that the training that's being provided must be pretty sufficient for making sure things are safe.
Yeah, and in addition to that, also, there's a code of conduct that the hunters have to read, sign, and fill out each year. It's not just one and done. They have to do that. I think they have to recertify every 3 years.
Every year I have
Every
to
year.
sign it, yeah.
But every year we actually have them sign the code of conduct. So, again, if we know that hunter is actually going to go hunt in that spot, you're going to be more than willing to be reasonable and listen. And, they know that anytime I can just tell them that they're out of the program and their hunting privilege has been revoked.
And we have had that happen before, so.
And it did say in the code unless new information was provided, so I was just trying to provide the new information that there wasn't kids in these houses 27 years ago. There are now, and I home educate, and so I was just trying to also provide the new information.
Yeah, well, and that does kind of go to, because I did see that was the other piece that the criteria is that it's unique to
Right.
the particular area, and that's where
This is unique.
there are other homeschooled children, and there are other children in the area all throughout town, so it's not particularly unique. So I don't know.
To this spot, I guess. I thought it
To
was.
your personal
Right.
property, but not to the parcel or the hunting area. There are
Yeah.
definitely other children around. And the same instance with other hunting spots throughout the town. Like there definitely are other parcels that are adjacent to homes with children. So that's not specifically unique to this program, or to this area.
I can at least speak to the new information piece because that is part of the code that talks about appealing a decision for the same property multiple times. So if you appeal it once, a denial to remove it once, you can only appeal it again if there's some new information to bring before the board. That's what that portion of the code is talking about.
So new after today.
Correct.
Okay. Interesting.
Any other questions or thoughts?
Just, is it possible to redraw the boundaries?
That's what we're discussing amongst ourselves here.
Okay.
I mean, I can't speak to whether or not that's possible, but even if it is, I still don't know if that's a great route to go down. Because if this is a successful plot of land that we're managing the deer population on, and then we redraw the boundaries here, and then later on, someone else wants to redraw the boundaries, and then all of a sudden, this whole parcel is gone.
Which is where the unique part comes
Right.
in. Like, yeah, because if it's something that's, because if this was a very specific situation that was very unique, then it's not repeatable across the town. But if it's anyone with children at home, then that's not necessarily, then that's the same situation at everywhere, right?
And even if we did redraw the boundaries, Mrs. Lake and her family might not see the hunter, but the deer could certainly still run into the yard as any deer would normally. Deer don't just fall over right when they get shot, I think. So, I mean, you're going to also see deer that get run over by cars. You're going to see plenty of deer that are, getting killed in other ways as well.
Yeah. And I think particularly in this area, I mean, it's not really just if I were a deer, I would probably run on the flats, not up a hill. But I don't know. But yeah, we have no control over where the deer runs or how far it runs. Okay. So do you guys have a direction that you're leaning? Or do we want to take time, or?
I know how I would vote, so
Okay.
unless someone else isn't ready, I'm...
Does anybody want to make a motion to either affirm or deny the IPD's decision to keep the property as is? This is where it gets confusing. We're affirming or denying the IPD's decision to keep the property as is.
I would like to make a motion to
So you,
either affirm or deny.
so so you would make a motion if you want to grant the appeal, and that would be removing the area from the bow hunt program. So it would be a motion to grant the appeal or a motion to deny the appeal, which would be to keep the area in the bow hunt program. Or you could always move to table it and consider it and make a decision at a different meeting.
So I would make a motion to deny the appeal.
I would second that.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those against, say nay. Hearing none, the appeal is denied. So, moving back to my where's the end of my agenda thing? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So we do not need to meet again, correct? Nothing else, we're kind of done. And so that would be all that we need to do today. So do we have a motion to close? Correct, that's it, yes?
I motion to close.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay. Hearing none, the meeting is closed.